Hello everyone, welcome back to another edition of Homemade, and today we are making just a simple red beans and rice. And you all, this recipe literally takes about 30 minutes to cook fully. Now, if you'll notice, I have my large stock pot. You will need a large stock pot for this. I'm doing the instant version. It's still homemade, but it's the instant version. Therefore, we are using 3 cans of red beans. I already have them prepped. In this bowl, I do have 2 smoked sausage links, and I'm using beef. If you want to use pork or whatever you choose, that is fine. In here, I have 1 whole bell pepper, 3 stalks of celery, and a whole onion that I just chopped up. And I did chop mine into smaller pieces. If you want the larger pieces, that's fine, because we are going to saute them, so the pieces won't be so large once we get done cooking. And I'm also going to use a 32-ounce size of chicken broth. We won't use all the chicken broth, but we will use most of it. I'm going to use 1/2 stick of butter to saute my vegetables, and I'm also going to put in 2 bay leaves. Now, I don't have them pictured here, but you'll need 2 bay leaves for this recipe. Now, for our spices, we are going to put these in onto our vegetables when we start to saute them. Here, I just have 1 tablespoon of bouillon, 1 tablespoon of onion powder, a tablespoon of Cajun seasoning, a tablespoon of garlic powder, and I also have 1 teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of cumin. That's going to be our seasonings for this. So what we'll do to start it off, we'll just start a saute of our vegetables into our stock pot. Once we saute the vegetables, then we will go ahead and add in our beans and our chicken broth along with our bay leaves. We're not going to add in our sausages until maybe about 20 minutes in, because remember, our smoked sausages, these are already done, so we don't want them to overcook. We just want to basically heat them up inside of the red beans. So we're going to head to the stove, start sauteing our vegetables, and I'll show you the color that you're looking for your onion. You're ready to go ahead and add in your chicken broth. You want them to be a kind of translucent color, because again, we want them to cook down as much as possible, but we just want to add that flavor inside of our red beans. So I'm going to go ahead, head to the stove, and start to saute my vegetables. So you can see our butter is starting to melt. Now, you don't have to wait until your butter melts completely. You can go ahead and put your Trinity in. And the Trinity is just onion, bell pepper, and celery. So we're going to go ahead, put that in. And I'm going to put in my seasonings. And give that a quick whirl. Put our lid, we're going to put our lid back onto our pot, and we're going to let those go for about 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, so our vegetables have sauteed for about 5 minutes, and we want to make sure that nothing is sticking. So I always use a rubber spoon or a wooden spatula. Right now, we are going to add in our chicken broth. And what I like to do is, we call it just deglazing, meaning if something did stick, you just put in enough liquid and it releases anything that is stuck. So we're just going to put in a little bit initially. Make sure everything is all mixed in really well. Okay. Now I will put in my beans. I'm going to stir those. And I will add in more chicken broth at this point. And what you're looking for is, if you want a really loose red bean and rice mixture, you add in more chicken broth. If you want your red beans and rice to, kind of gel together, then you add in less chicken broth. Now, if at this stage you want to taste your beans, I would suggest you just get a separate spoon. If you want to make sure that they have enough salt, they have enough seasoning, because you want to add in your seasonings as early as you possibly can. And I just like to make sure that everything is mixed in really well, that nothing is clinging to the sides of my pot. I'm going to put in 2 bay leaves. If you want to put in more, that's fine. But actually, I'll put in 3. And we are going to cover this, and we are going to let this cook for about 25 minutes covered. We're not going to bother it. So we're going to reduce our heat down to medium. Therefore, we don't have to worry about it burning, because we want it to boil as much as it possibly can. I do have my rice cooking in here. Typically, I would just put in just the rice directly and wash rice directly into my beans. But for this recipe, I want to be able to ladle the red beans over the rice. So in here, I just cooked my rice. I do use parboiled rice for this particular recipe. So I put in a half a stick of margarine into 4 cups of water and 2 cups of washed rice. I will leave this covered. I let it cook for about 10 minutes, and typically the water will cook out of it. I like to go ahead and season my water before I put in my rice, and I just put the rice directly into it. It's been cooking for about 3 or 4 minutes, so I'm going to let it cook some more. Once it cooks and the water leaves the rice, then we will go ahead, crack our lid, let it sit for about 3 to 5 minutes, and we'll come back and we'll fluff it with a fork. Our red beans and rice, they are done, you all. And I did go ahead and put my rice in there, and just look at that. They are so good. Now remember, if you want yours to be a little more loose, just add more chicken stock or water, whichever one you're using. I'm going to go ahead and taste this, and y'all, when I say good, it is good. It is seasoned perfectly. It's the perfect blend. You honestly, if you use the exact spices and if you follow the recipe that I gave you, you do not need to add any more salt. It is enough salt. It is seasoned perfectly. When you make these, make sure you post your comments and your photos in the comment section below. Let me know if you like the recipe, if you didn't like the recipe, what you do different if you make this particular dish a lot. You all, I promise you, you are going to fall in love with these red beans and rice. Now, I know I did not say it earlier, but don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our channel if you want to keep seeing our easy homemade recipes. Cooking is as easy or as hard as you make it, but I promise you, if you keep it simple, just be yourself, life in itself can be so much easier. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Homemade, and until next time, continue to be great.